Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to VALORANT News. A huge day in the VCT Americas yesterday with two massive games. Sentinels versus Cloud9 was a remarkable story with C9 destroying Sentinels off the face of the earth. Their team really is looking like the super team that we were promised when they started their season with a very different roster. But what went on for Sentinels last night? What does their coach have to say about it? And what might they need to improve on? With Tarek kind of saying that maybe it's time for TenZ to make the return. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, quick note on DSG. Ye is verified as now an official affiliate with DSG. If you actually look at DSG's affiliate thing, you will probably find that the only player here that is not kind of involved is Steel. So I should probably follow more of these guys, but it is what it is. Guess I should follow Toast really. But Steel is not noticed on here actually, so probably confirming that for the extra $50 a month, it wasn't really worth it for them. So there's a chance that Steel is going to be gone full time, right? Despite being moved to the bench, it's pretty likely that he might not be coming back anytime soon. Also, they're looking for a game changers roster, which is pretty cool stuff. So Disguise expanding their arsenal, which is always nice to see. Let's dive into the matches though then, because these were the fantastic Plat Chat power rankings from a while ago now. And, you know, it's obviously not aged particularly well, but that's just sometimes how things go. The Americas is very competitive from top to bottom, as we well know. Much more so, I would say, than a lot of the other regions, to be honest. A lot of the bottom tier teams in the other regions are, you know, going to be down there for quite some time, whereas even Crew and Evil Geniuses, they are solid teams in their own right, as we saw yesterday with EG for the first time in quite some time. So let's dive into this Sentinels Cloud9 series, right? This was, I thought, was going to be a banger. I was expecting Cloud9 to probably win. I thought they were just proven to be the slightly more competent team so far, but I thought this was going to be a 2-1, a close fought affair, but this was absolute demolition job. Marv came into the team last week, and I know there was some discussion within the community that, like, look, at the end of the day, they'd Marv had come in, they'd lost to Loud anyway, and yes, Loud world champions, and it was a decent performance from Sentinels, but they did lose at the end of the day. They won a map, but so did Evil Geniuses, in fairness. Now, EG actually might turn out to be pretty damn good, and then they beat MIBR comfortably, but that's an MIBR that haven't exactly been looking great lately. Fury took them down without too much difficulty just yesterday or the day before yesterday, so I was wondering how good actually are Sentinels. Like, are they solved now with Marv in the team? Have they still got issues? And Cloud9 showed they certainly still have issues. But man, Cloud9, what an impressive performance from them. Also, I've got to share this clip here. It was hilarious. So the broadcast team came up with this idea of Sean Guest sitting with the glasses on and pretending to be Kaplan. We know that, you know, Kaplan, when he sits down and does his interviews, looks a bit like, people say he looks more like Shroud than Shroud does himself. So I'm just going to share a minute of this because it's too funny not to.
What up, Sin City? Welcome back. Kaplan here again. Before we head into our match against Cloud9 this week, I wanted to give you a quick roster update. Wait, hold on. We're not doing any more roster changes? What am I reading?
Just keep reading. It'll make sense.
You're doing great, Kaplan. Just pick up on that last sentence.
Okay, before we head into our match against Cloud9 this week, I wanted to give you a quick roster update. Your boy, Jimmy, is looking sick in red. So we're going to have a big... I can't say this. I don't want to swear.
Look, this is what everyone wants to hear. You're doing great, kid.
It feels weird and wrong, though.
You have to curse. Come on, it's Sentinels.
Your boy Jimmy is looking sick in red, so we're going to have a big sale right now in the shop. Save 10% on a Mar jersey if you use the code Really? The code is
Keep reading.
As always, thank you to the fans for your continued support.
But this series was an absolute demolition. Game 1 did not last long, and Game 2, Sentinels could have been 13-0 here. It was borderline embarrassing. Sassy and Pancada saved it from that one, and, you know, in fairness, Marv and co were getting the job done here. Marv clutched a 1v1 to keep them alive, but they were down 10-0 here. It was then 10-1, 11-1 at the half. Sentinels did put a few rounds together on the second side, but Cloud9 eventually closed it out, and they've been looking so good, man. It's really impressive to see what Cloud9 have done here, and I've got to say, like, I, among many others, was critical when they made that move, and especially given the other circumstances and the responses from Ye at the time around the role issues and all this type of stuff. But fundamentally, they've obviously made a fantastic decision here. Their team is looking way better, and honestly, I think that Cloud9 will only continue to improve. Jake is only going to continue to get better. Rooney and his calling on this level is only going to get better, I would imagine. Both of them have been super good, as Marv says. GG's Cloud9 couldn't get anything going today. You need to lock in for the rest of the split. Absolutely absolutely true, because as it stands, okay, it's still possible, technically, I believe, that all 5 North American teams qualify for playoffs, but it is probably not going to happen, right? It would take Fury to drop out or all this stuff, probably not going to happen. So the reality is that there's going to be 2, 3, maybe 4 at a very much a push. NA team is qualifying for the playoffs. Cloud9 are certainly going to do it now, and which other teams are going to fit in there, because 100 Thieves aren't looking so good, but they still have 3 wins. Sentinels could really have done with a victory yesterday, but they didn't get one, and NRG, they're making a bit of a comeback as well. So it's getting really spicy in the VCT Americas, as Sentinels themselves say, best part of that game is that it's over. Next 3 games are definitely winnable. We'll see that here in a second. We're about to be the most interesting storyline in the VCT. So, you know, it is clear looking at their matches, Sentinels, that it started harder and gets easier as they go, but they still need to execute on that, because yesterday was not pretty, and even Dephh was throwing a roast in, smoked those bums. So yeah, pretty funny stuff. But Cloud9 had their way with Sentinels yesterday, and what exactly was the problem? Well, we'll see what the coach has to say here in a second. Did also want to say this. So Sentinels Kaplan tweets this out: GG's O2 to Cloud9, they're nasty. We did not show up at all today. We need to learn to maintain confidence and energy despite cold starts if we want to make playoffs this split. So fair analysis, and we'll see more of this in a second. But Zekan's father, this is, as I said this the other day, right? Esports players' parents are just hilarious. They say all sorts of stuff on Twitter, and if you guys have any experience in sports, you'll know that like even sports parents in person are bad enough. But when you give them access to Twitter on esports, it goes different crazy. So as Zekan's dad says, you started off 4-0 on the first map. That's not exactly a slow start. So kind of calling out Kaplan there and saying, well, actually, no, it wasn't a cold start, mate. It's kind of your fault somehow. Now, this is the thing with, you know, I don't blame Zekan's dad for defending his son and all this, but fundamentally, right, a parent of a player is never going to say, oh, you know, my son just had a bad game today, or he was the fault, or he was the fault or anything. The blame is naturally going to go elsewhere, which probably doesn't really help anyone, but still, thought it was pretty funny, because technically, as Kaplan says, they had a cold start. Did they really have a cold start? They started off pretty hot game 1, and then it completely collapsed after then. From then onwards, frankly, they just got completely outclassed, and this is a fake Ron Moore account, unfortunately, so not the real Ron Moore, which is a shame, but you know, as you can see here, the tweet that he does as the CEO of Sentinels, it's with a heavy heart that we announced the release of our VALORANT roster. I know there were some other fake tweets going around as well that said, like, okay, Kaplan, he's gone, we're bringing Drew Spark in as our full-time head coach now, but yeah, of course, difficult result for Sentinels. Maybe Cloud9 are just built different, right? Jack Etienne says role issues, I can relate, and I thought it was quite nice, because a few months ago now, back in maybe February or even earlier than that, there was some drama between T-Dog and Rooney in the tier 2 side, and ever since that happens, as he says, I started taking his lessons, and look at me now being greatest IGL this game has ever seen. So that has certainly come full circle. But look at this one, 2-0 versus Sentinels to Cloud9. I mean, this is just not pretty at all. Leaf 41 in 20. Zekan had a rough time. He was 1 in 11 in first kill, first death. And this immediately is going to raise questions, right? Because, look, Marved did it as well as he could have done, I thought, to be honest. Pancada did an okay job as well. The entire team got bodied, of course. But when your duelist is getting smoked, now in part, when your duelist is not having a good time, it's not necessarily the duelist's fault. Sometimes it's just bad utility setup from the rest of the team. But of course, Zekan stepping into the duelist role that TenZ would occupy is always going to raise questions. He did a great job, I thought, so far. But, you know, ever since that, I'm like, okay, it was actually a 3-0 start for Sentinels here. But you know what Zekan's stat is getting at. And then Fracture was the demolition job. 13-4, 13-6. This is looking like prime MAT in challenges. But fundamentally, when Zekan's having a bad time, it is going to raise questions, just because, you know, TenZ is there potentially to take out the mantle if necessary when he is ready. And just to mention this, the 3 games that they've got upcoming are massive. They play Evil Genius is next, and then Crew, and then Furia. So technically it's easy for them. They could and maybe should win all of those 3 games. But Sen versus EG now is all of a sudden an absolute banger with huge implications here for how things might go. And I just wanted to share Tarek's, he's joking around obviously here, but you know, he's saying, look, maybe it's time for TenZ to make a return.
Ridiculous stuff. I mean, 11.
Bro, where the f is TenZ, bro? Where the f is TenZ, bro?
Zekan's also having a nightmare. The Nets were talking about it. And how many first stats he had? He's currently sat at 1 and 12. He's just been getting brutalized. He's supposed to.
Don't bring it down. Don't bring it down. We saw enough. We saw enough. So Kaplan, the head coach, says, to me, the completely dominant score reflects that we have a team atmosphere issue that we need to fix, and our energy is not what it needed to be to play good Valorant today. And basically just talked about some of the other teams and says there's issues with the team energy and comms as a whole. It's hard to evaluate calling or play calling as low energy overall, makes it a much more difficult task than it's supposed to be. So low energy is a very interesting way to phrase it. And look, it was working fine for them previously, it felt like, but I guess today they just came out slow. And yeah, I don't know if low energy, is that really the explanation, or do they just get completely outclassed from a tactical and individual basis? But I'm sure Kaplan knows a thing or two about how things are going internally. But it's interesting, right? Because just the other day we saw people talk about, oh, Psycho, their former head coach, he's more of an emotional coach. He's more of like, you know, a leader in that sense to get the guys in the right headspace for the game. And with him now fired, is Kaplan the guy to put them in the right spot going into the game? Or is he more of a tactical guy, which he probably is? So there's a debate to be had there. But also, Deph's meant to be a Rigel. Surely he's the one kind of, you know, commanding the troops in that sense. So it already raises very interesting questions. If this had been a close 2-1 defeat, there wouldn't have been so much talk about it. But getting blown out as they did, not even getting, what, 10 rounds they got over the 2 maps was not pretty at all. And lots for them to think about. The other series, though, Evil Geniuses up against Leviatan. This was incredible, right? Look, Demon 1, I've been a big fan of this player ever since he came into this team. But you've got to say, the Potter Redemption arc is going off on the main stage right now. There was a bit of drama, actually, because this very first pistol round here, we've got Taco gets boosted up into the corner, but he actually didn't updraft into the corner. He actually got boosted up here, which is not allowed in the rules. You're not allowed to boost. It's illegal in the matches to do so. If you want to get into a spot like this, you've got to use utility to do so. That didn't happen. Now, I don't believe the admins even spotted this at the time, because he goes on to get 2 kills here and wins the round. But, you know, still, I don't believe they spotted this. Later on, there was also some other thing that they did replay around for, but it's very interesting that this is happening at the moment, where there's rounds like this where, like, Leviatan must have known, you would think, that this is not allowed. Surely they know the rules, that this is against, you know, it's not allowed, it's illegal. But the problem is that if they get caught doing it, they don't forfeit the round or the map, it's just replayed. So there's basically no punishment for this cheating. Let's say it was, I kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt this is unintentional, but still it feels weird that if you do deliberately cheat and use an exploit such as this to gain a competitive advantage, then that's against the rules, then you don't really get punished. There's just a round replay that seems to happen. So that is a bit of a debate. Doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? Because it was actually Evil Geniuses that get the job done. A 2-1 series, 13 10s every map they played. But awesome story for EG to get this job done. And it's cool because Potter's been getting a lot of criticism lately, but I thought really impressive what they've been able to achieve here. And they've been turning up lately massively. And Ethan went big last map on the KO as well. So Leviatan, despite looking like such a good team for so long, have definitely fallen off a fair bit lately. It was 13-10 on the Ascent. They nearly got 9-3 curse, to be fair, but they did manage to close out the game at the end. And yeah, Demon 1 again, mostly in the positive. No BCJ still, but at this rate, they're not going to be bringing him back. So awesome stuff for Evil Geniuses. Makes things really interesting indeed. And this is now how things sit in the Americas side. And wow, this is getting spicy. So there are currently 6 teams in the playoff size. Cloud9, Loud, they are certainly going to be there. Leviatan know now 3-3. They are far from guaranteed anymore, with NRG and 100 Thieves sitting here. Sentinels, they play their 3 more games, right? They could potentially go to 5-4, and if they get to 5-4, that'll be good enough. 4-5 might not be, depending on how the tiebreakers go, but that's what they're going to need to get to. And that game against EG is so big, because whoever loses out of that game is probably out of contention. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.